Switching gears now, though, to our dive into Yahoo Finance's latest morning brief, and we're taking a look at the implications of artificial intelligence. AI may be opening new doors of opportunities in tech, but not without rattling up the status quo in the search market here. And there's a lot to really break down here, Rochelle, especially as we think about what type of monetization this could lead to for companies who are still awaiting for more regulatory or regulation rather to come forward, and a question of whether or not regulators fully understand artificial intelligence to the extent that they're willing to or want to take action around it right now.
And it's interesting, we're seeing this sort of stop and start reaction from a lot of the CEOs as well, whether it's Sundar Pichai or Elon Musk, saying they're really at the forefront of some of these advances and incorporating it into their businesses, but also calling for more regulatory approval, really calling for some of this slowdown. But it's really going to be the search engines, which I think are going to be leading the way here. This is that easier path in, as we're seeing with Bard and we're seeing with ChatGPT being incorporated here. But it's really trying to make that balancing act of advancing this. Everybody wants to be first, but nobody really wants to draw the ire of regulators as they still struggle to catch up and really get a handle on this. So it's this sort of stutter stepping that we're seeing, but nobody wants to be left behind at the moment, Brad.
No, nobody does. And that's why we see all these new names coming about that we got to remember, whether it's Ernie, whether it's Bard, or whether it's whatever ChatGPT is going to be named. Does ChatGPT have a real name yet? I don't know if we've discovered that yet.
None of them really roll off the tongue. And then you have TruthGPT, which is Elon Musk's advancement coming into the way as well. There you go. Well, as advances in artificial intelligence continue, the hurdles in approaching AI regulation comes into question as the implications of such actions can spread far and wide. Here to discuss is Nina Schick, author, advisor, speaker, specializing in generative AI. Good to see you, Nina. So as we look at the pace of development that we've now seen, just even in the past year, especially when it comes to generative AI, where are regulators in this? They seem to be relatively quiet.
Regulators are far behind, because I think the first point to make is the AI that's seizing the market right now, that everyone is trying to get ahead of, that all the tech companies have pivoted to, so-called generative AI. I mean, it really only kicked off in the last 6 months or so with the release of ChatGPT and some foundational models before that. And the acceleration both of the technology and its applications are unprecedented. So when it comes to regulating this new space of AI, regulators are far, far, far behind. However, there is an increasing understanding amongst regulators, amongst policymakers, that they have to look at this. I mean, ChatGPT alone is the most popular application of all time. It had 100 million users within 2 months. There is no way that regulators and policymakers don't start looking at this field when you're talking about technology that is as popular as this, used by hundreds of millions of people, that is absolutely going to transform everything within months.
Nina, what does it tell you that Elon Musk, a person who invested in OpenAI, is now sounding the alarm on it, and other tech executives and CEOs are also kind of sounding some warning signs, if you will?
Look, it might be a case a little bit of cognitive dissonance, because whilst Elon Musk was a signatory to the AI moratorium letter, warning of the so-called kind of AGI scenario, the nuclear scenario, the moment when the machines become more intelligent than humans and take over. I mean, we are definitely not there yet. That is a possibility, the robots taking over scenario, but we are definitely not there yet. And how do we know that? Elon knows that too, because I think it was just weeks or days after signing that letter, he is gone all in on generative AI. He's launched his own venture. He said he's going to build a competitor to ChatGPT. So on one hand, whilst I think these kind of tech titans are not disingenuous about these potential existential risks, I think they're also too smart to know, too smart that they know that this is not coming right now. And right now it is about getting market share, about building the platforms, building the enterprise models, building the foundational models that are completely going to transform the way we work in the market. And everybody wants a piece of that. Google, Microsoft, Amazon, I bet you Apple wants a piece of that, and Elon is not going to be left behind.
So then, Nina, from a regulatory perspective, obviously as we await Skynet to become a real thing, what are some of the most immediate dangers and perhaps some of the regulations already on the books that could address some of these immediate dangers?
I mean, from a regulatory perspective, I wouldn't want to be a regulator because it is so vast. It's like saying, okay, regulate the economy or regulate the internet. How do you even address something as huge as AI and begin to regulate it? I mean, first of all, it's just the conceptual understanding of what's happening, which is extremely difficult because as I've been researching the field of generative AI for the kind of past 5 years, kind of starting at ground zero, I've seen how quickly these technologies are advancing, where even researchers, the people kind of in the very kind of cutting edge of this, are surprised at what the tech can do now and how quickly it's expanding. So regulators are always going to be a step or two behind. That being said, I think the predominant concerns right now that are coming to the table have to do with data, have to do with IP, have to do with privacy, and have to do with ownership, not only of these models, but also ownership of who gets to have what the AI generates. And I think this will be very, very important going forward. We've seen that in Europe, some kind of opening salvos from the regulators have been fired, mostly by kind of banning ChatGPT temporarily, like they've done in Italy, or saying they're going to be looking around some of the data protection issues on the training data for ChatGPT. But these kind of use cases or these cases will have really profound impacts for the entire field of AI and machine learning going forward. But regulators have a huge job on their hands because fundamentally the question is going to be, how do we regulate these systems and the companies that are building or have access to these generative models in a way that does not stifle innovation? Because I think by going the way perhaps that seems to be a little bit the trend in Europe, where just saying we're going to ban this, I think you would be making a massive error because tremendous abundance is going to be engendered by these AI systems and models. So how do you regulate whilst trying to make sure that innovation isn't being stifled?
Nina, we only have a couple seconds until the opening bell here this morning, but if data is the currency that social media platforms were looking at and then being able to monetize that currency by further indexing the data that they were able to intake and see these massive profits, what is the currency of artificial intelligence from your perspective?
Well, data is a huge part of that, obviously, because they're these foundational models, which are kind of non-task specific, can almost do anything without fine tuning. And again, we're only at the very beginning, these models are going to get better. They're all powered by data. So who owns that data? Who owns the output? These are all absolutely integral questions for the future of artificial intelligence.
Nina Schick, who is the author, advisor, speaker, specializing in generative AI. Nina, pleasure to speak with you again and get some of your insights.
Great to be here. Thank you.